So we had this conversation, you and I, like, okay, our business is growing, it's stable, it's successful. We have worked our systems. We're out of our business working just a couple hours a week. We can, one, do nothing, or two, we have this goal, we have this idea to start this new business, right? Do we want to do that? And so we went out on that perspective because our priority was riches.
Welcome back to another episode of The Donkey and the Bee with your hosts, Brett and Laura Shakavis. We come at you every week to give you tips, skills, strategies, all the above on marriage, entrepreneurship, and finances. It's like the trifecta right there,
It's all the good stuff.
Bada bing, bada boom, right at you, huh?
It's how to succeed in life.
Exactly.
Well, that's really the gist of it, right? How to work with your spouse, kick butt in life, and really cover these core issues that people really get divorced, they fail, they have struggles with.
Yeah. We're a team. I think that's what we want to portray here, is that we work together. We don't work against each other in the life that we're building together. And I think a lot of times in marriage, you can actually be on opposite teams. One's the home, one's the visitor. And so we want to share with y'all what we do to combat life as a team.
That's right.
Yep.
So today we're talking about how to get rich. We're going to get a little deeper than that and talk about really the mental mindset behind it and more about prioritizing. And there's really three priorities that I want to talk about that every person decides, most likely subconsciously. They decide these things. Here's what my priorities are for my finances. And you go about life living that way, but not really acknowledging them, not really knowing what they are. So I want to talk about those today, share what those are, and then kind of put that into a sequence of events or perspective on, hey, you know what? If you want to be rich, this is what you need to do and how you need to live your life and how you need to create these habits and actions. And we'll talk through, if you want to be middle class, here's what it looks like. If you are poor, you may not choose to be poor, but you are choosing it because of these priorities that you have.
So I'm hopeful that this is eye-opening to some people, because I think when we were in this first priority we're going to talk about in a second, when we were in this stage of life, I don't think we realized it. So I think when you said subconsciously, I think a lot of times it is subconsciously. You have no idea that you're stuck in this like financial priority in your life. And so I'm hopeful that this is eye-opening and mind-opening, that it opens up your mind to the possibilities of your finances, and that you're just not stuck in that mindset of, well, I just have to work the grind 9 to 5 and go to my job that I hate and the boss that always yells at me. And it doesn't have to be that way. So open up your eyes, open up your mind to what we have to say today. Don't have a negative association with the word rich, because I kind of do. So being rich doesn't mean you are an asshole who drives a nice car and who treats people like crap. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about someone who has produced wealth for themselves in order to give back to people. And that is really the rich that we are talking about today.
Yeah. So we're going to kind of break things into three kind of sections financially: rich, middle class, and poor. And the world's complex and finances are complex. There's not really three categories. There's so many different categories in between. But I think we'll talk about it today in a simplified perspective. And I think that'll help to really kind of say, okay, well, this makes more sense because we're going to simplify it so much. So let's talk about these three priorities, like how you set up what you're going to do with your finances. So you want to share what they are?
So financial priorities, we have the first one as security, the second one as comfort, and the third one as rich or wealthy.
Yeah. So these three things, right? Pretty simple concepts to understand. These three things you can arrange in any order you want. It will drastically change your financial outlook. You could be super rich by arranging these three things one way, or really struggling financially, having nothing in the bank account and prioritizing another different way.
So then most people, you would say, start off on this first one that we're going to talk about as security.
Perhaps, yeah. So let's talk about this first because that's easiest to understand, right? If you are poor, I would say you prioritize these three things in this order. First is security. Second is comfort. And third is riches. Now, you may want to be rich. You may want to be wealthy, but because you have prioritized it last, you first want security, and then second comfort, and then third riches, most likely you will never get to riches. You will always be striving for the second priority, right? Let's get secure and let's talk about comfort. So let's kind of give this context, and I want to give all three of these contexts so people can understand and have a real takeaway on this. So security, right? That's your core focus here, is your number one priority, right? So it is having food. It is having a place to live. It is having a car that can get you to point A to part B. None of these things are fancy, right? We are not talking about, a really nice house. We're not talking about a middle class neighborhood. We're not talking about a new SUV to take your kids to soccer practice, right? Like that would be comfort as your first priority, but security, right? This is where if you have just the minimum of life, you're good, right? You're not pushing harder. You're not pushing further. You're not getting out of your comfort zone because, hey, you know what? I'm not going to buy a house. That is not for me. That's something that is for, the middle class or the rich people. That is not something that I believe I can achieve, right? So you're going to keep having that apartment. You're never going to make any investments. You're never really going to save much money. You're not going to get more than like a rainy day fund in your savings account because you've made steps that say, hey, you know what? My number one priority is security. If I can be a good mom or dad or husband, if I can feed my kids, we're not living on top ramen anymore, right? Every single month I'm paying rent and, I'm showing my kids how to work hard, right? Like you may not be working smart, right? You may not have invested in your business or in your education or in growing, up the corporate ladder, right? Those are not your priority. It is first and foremost, how do I make sure I get to the end of the month and I have just enough money to make it to day 30 or day 31?
This was us in the beginning. I think of us, we were looking for security after we graduated college. Yes, we did do the education aspect, but we were living paycheck to paycheck. If one of us got hurt when we first got married, the other person would have had to pick up another job. We weren't thinking like an investor. We didn't even know what investing was. We had no idea what cash flow meant. I mean, there were all these things we had no idea about. And so we were living that security life. We were living paycheck to paycheck. And we didn't even really think about anything further than that. We thought about, we're going to climb the corporate ladder and then we'll make it to the middle class is really what we were striving for at that point.
Yeah. And so, okay, so you say we did go to college. We were trying to get good jobs, right? That was what was taught to us. I think we were taught a comfort style of lifestyle, right? The middle class lifestyle. That's what we were taught. But sometimes people are not taught that, right? They are not taught as children that they are good enough to go to college. They're not taught, to find some type of trade job that you can grow in and you can make great money. Sometimes people are just taught like, hey, I'm going to go get another job at McDonald's or some other job, right? You make $15, $20 an hour and you do that your entire life. So if you have that covered, you have your security covered, but your second priority is comfort, you actually have to risk your security to get comfort. If you have a job and you work, every single day and if you go and you need to do like night school or you want to go to college, you are actually sacrificing that security, right? In order to get from security to comfort, you have to sacrifice security. You have to let that go. And you really are taking a risk, a financial risk, a time risk. You are maybe quitting your job, trying something new. You are maybe starting your own small business, becoming a solopreneur, right? Trying to get into that middle class lifestyle. And there is definite risk there. You are releasing that security, even though it's not much. If you can hold on to that, right, like that may be your priority, but you have to release that in order to grow and get to the second level of comfort. So there's some people that literally they will never even get to that level, let alone riches. That's only if they win the lottery. They have no plan to get rich because they do not believe they can do it and therefore they're not taking the actions. They've not prioritized it that way. But some people, they're stuck in this poor category because of what they believe about themselves, their choices, and they're too scared to let go of security to chase after the next level of comfort?
It's scary. I mean, we did it. We know. We both quit our jobs, our full-time jobs. I was working city government, and Brett was going to be a firefighter, and we had the perfect setup to have retirement and whatever else, right? But we hated our jobs. We didn't like it. And so we both quit our jobs at the same time, I'm pretty sure.
When we had Brooklyn.
When we had Brooklyn, our oldest daughter. So we cut that security tie in order to make the step up to the comfort. And so we quit our jobs and we started a business. And that was like so hard because it took us, 3 months before we got a deal. We were flipping houses at the time. And we didn't know what the hell we were doing. This was all new, right? Mm-hmm. We just took a leap of faith. We jumped in full force with both feet and kind of didn't have a plan B. We like burned the boats, right? Like we were just like, we're going to make this happen. We can't be working like this the rest of our lives. We want to be happy. We want to be quote unquote financially free, because we had read a book about that at that time. And so yeah, we cut that security tie, and it was incredibly scary. I mean, I can even feel it now, like how we felt back then, of like almost like taking the breath out of you, like you're like punched in the stomach. And it's scary, and I think that's why people don't do it, is because they don't want to have that feeling. And I completely understand, but I think the only way to get to that next level is to take that step and to get that air knocked out of you.
That's right. So let's talk about that next level, right? If you chose your priorities a certain way and you were in the middle class, and there's a huge spread between the middle class here, but let's kind of simplify it and say, okay, here's what middle class looks like in America today. And you would prioritize first and foremost your comfort, then your security, and then riches. Because you may think, hey, my goal is to make 200 grand a year and make good money. That's comfortable. But we're not talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, right? We're not talking Bill Gates kind of money here. So that you're still most likely like, the only way I'm getting rich like that is if I win the lottery, right? That's still priority number 3 because it's more of an afterthought. But your comfort is what you want. You have gotten to a place where you maybe are not okay with the apartment that you used to have in college. Right now, you want to own your own home, and you want to be in a neighborhood that's a great neighborhood. Your kids can go to the schools there. You're happy with it. It's safe for them, right? Maybe you want to put your kids in private school. You want to have the new SUV to be able to take your kids to soccer practice, right? There's a lot of comfort in there, and I would say this is the widest range. So in order to get there, I mean, you literally had to grow through those things, right? You had to sacrifice the security. You had to go and either maybe go to college, or you had to go put in and climb the corporate ladder. You had to work a lot of overtime or whatever it is to get to that higher level of income, right? You had to sacrifice in some kind of way.
This is the category where most people get stuck. This is the middle class trap, is what we like to call it, or Robert Kiyosaki likes to call it in his book. And it's the trap of, quote unquote, keeping up with the Joneses, making sure that you have the nice car to drop your kid off at school so that everyone who doesn't really care what you think about, thinks that you are well off when they're not even thinking about that. And so it's a trap where we all get stuck in, because it's this media push of having the designer bags, having the nice cars, having the big house. And so you're stuck in that, and you're not thinking about your future. You're not planning for your financial future. You're just planning for the next thing that you can buy to impress somebody who doesn't even care about you. And so it's that trap that we all get stuck in. And it's a dangerous trap, because if you don't have a plan, what's going to happen when you're 60, 65 and you're getting close to retirement and you have no investments, you have no money saved. Yeah, you maybe have your house that you own and you have maybe $150,000 in equity in it, but where's that going to take you? What happens when you get sick? And so it's this trap for most Americans.
Yeah. The comfort is very, very desirable. Everyone wants these things, and there's different levels of comfort, right? You can vacation, in Europe for 3 weeks, or you can go camping, right? We've done both. So there's lots of different levels here, but nonetheless, the principle is the same, that when you are having comfort as your number one priority, you're really leaving off the riches part. You are not sacrificing you're not investing, you're not following a plan necessarily to say, okay, here's how I get to financial freedom. Here's how I build wealth or riches, right? Like your ultimate goal is comfort, right? You got a nice house. You may have some money saved in your 401k or something to that effect. It's probably realistically not enough because people are living to 90 or 100 years old now. You probably don't have that kind of plan together, but you maybe have a little bit, and your kids, right? They have everything you need. You're being a great parent. There's a lot of good things in there except riches, right? Like this is a way to just be the average middle class American.
So when we talk about this middle class trap, I kind of want to dive deeper a little bit into that, because I think that may not have come across in what we just said. So when we say middle class trap, I always think of mousetrap every time I say that, but because it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
You're going for the cheese and you always get trapped. But middle class trap, you purchase your first house, single family home, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,500 square feet. That's the average home in America. You purchase that, you're stoked, it's your first house, you have the job, right? You get a promotion. You're making maybe $20,000 to $25,000 more a year. You're stoked. You think this is amazing. Instead of putting that $25,000 to a different account where you're saving that for an investment or an asset, you take that $25,000 and maybe you buy a car, a nicer car. Or maybe you sell your house that you had and you take that money and you buy a bigger house. You're living there, you're loving it. It's still comfort. You're still in the middle class trap because you get another promotion, right? Maybe it's $50,000 more now. But instead of, again, taking that money and putting it aside, you're maybe buying a nicer car, or maybe you're taking that money and you're selling that nice house and you're getting a bigger house, bigger mortgage payment. Or maybe you think, hey, we live by a lake. Let's buy a boat. And you buy a boat. And you're buying these liabilities. You're not buying assets. And it's this trap that you're constantly stuck in, because no matter how much money you're making, you're still just dumping it into these liabilities, and you're not having a financial plan to put money aside to purchase assets so that you can become financially free later on down the road.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's one side of it, right? Another example of the other side is what you've invested in yourself. What are you putting into your mind? What kind of skills and education have you developed? Because in order to get to that level in the middle class, you've invested some in yourself, right? You maybe went to college, or you invested in your education so that you can get a great job. You're getting a higher paying job. You're climbing the corporate ladder. But most of the time, you kind of stop there. You hit comfort, right? You got your degree, and that's it, right? You're not a lifelong student. And that's the difference between riches, right? When you have that other priority. So I think that you have invested in yourself enough to get past that security part, and then you kind of stop. Where you could have continued to invest maybe in other skill sets, right? More in the investing skill set. We talk to so many people that make great money that have never learned how to invest. They have no idea how to do it. They don't know how to invest in the stock market or real estate or any of these kind of things, right? And they are always asking us, Brett or Laura, like, what would you do? How would you do these things? And it's like, you know what? We had the same path in the beginning. We went through college, we built our active income, but then you and I, we continued to grow ourselves. We never stopped. We are always lifelong learning. And I think that's where you don't want to go, right? Because that's putting riches first. If you want to be comfortable, you're going to work your job, you're going to do what you got to do, and then you're going to go sitting on the couch or hang out with the kids or go to the lake, right? You're going to be comfortable. You don't want to continue to be uncomfortable. You don't want to be a lifelong learner, right? That's for the rich people.
I don't think people have the mindset that lifelong learners for the rich people. I think most people think that when you're rich, you just got lucky. I literally think that's what people think.
Ask a rich person.
I know. Most people don't ask rich people.
That's where they failed.
I know, exactly. Well, let's move on to this last one then, since we're talking about rich people, the riches. So you're passing the security, you're passing the comfort. So we get to the riches. So then are you surpassing your comfort at that point? You already surpassed security to get to comfort. Now you're surpassing comfort to get to riches.
Yeah, so I would say your priority, number one priority is rich, and then it's comfortable, and then it's security. And I think we can speak to this because we are on this journey, and some people may call us rich. We have a lot more to do and grow in our wealth, but we are definitely working that way. And there's been a lot of things that we have strategically decided to do and things that we've not decided to do that other people have questioned. And so let's kind of give it some context here, because our goal has been riches, right? We want to be very, very wealthy. And we got to a place a few years ago where we reached comfort. And we had a house, we had cars, we had things that were great for the middle class. And we could essentially have stopped working, right? And I mean, we were still in our mid-30s, right? We could stop working. And isn't that the American dream? Isn't that what everyone wants? We didn't want that, right? Because our priority was not comfort. Our priority, number one, was riches. So we had this conversation, you and I, like, okay, our business is growing, it's stable, it's successful. We have worked our systems. We're out of our business working just a couple hours a week. We can, one, do nothing, or two, we're on this, we have this goal, we have this idea to start this new business, right? Do we want to do that? And so we went out on that perspective because our priority was riches. And I would say this, that it's not that we just sacrifice comfort, we also additionally sacrifice security. Because as we continue to grow in our business, we continue to do bigger deals, we're ultimately putting everything we have at risk to some extent, right? We are taking out huge loans on our new projects. We are personally guaranteeing, right, everything that we own. If everything went horribly wrong, which I don't think it will ever happen, but if it went horribly wrong, we could lose everything, right? And so from that perspective, we are essentially sacrificing the comfort, right? We still live in a great house and we have cars that are good cars and our kids go to private school. So there's some comfort there. But for us, it's more, we're sacrificing less the physical comfort and more the, emotional or time, those kind of comforts, right? Where we had this opportunity to chill and vacation or maybe homeschool and travel, buy an RV, whatever the heck people want to do in this quote unquote American dream, right? The middle class, we could have had all of that stuff and said, no, that's not for us. We're going to sacrifice our comfort. We're actually going to sacrifice our security and we're going to push to this next business, this next goal, because that's kind of who we are. We really like that stuff. And it was very clear, here is our priority. It's riches, it's wealth, and we are willing to sacrifice these other things to pursue that.
So on the past example where I was talking about the wealth trap, the middle class trap, when we're talking about comfort, we gave up a lot of comfort the last decade, I would say. I don't know if you guys have heard of Grant Cardone, I'm sure you have, but he talks about this going broke aspect that we totally just grasped and held on to for the past decade. And we went broke. We didn't live the life that we had, that comfortable lifestyle. We lived the life that we were like starving college students. So we were very, very vigilant on making sure that we were putting away a majority of the money that we were making and didn't go out to dinners. We would go on date nights, but it'd be like at home. We weren't spending money on, clothes and vacations. And we have a 2007 Toyota Tundra still currently, and it's 2024. It's rusted and the paint's coming off, and we still have it because it still works. So there's things that we sacrificed in order to get to that goal of riches that I think majority of people wouldn't have sacrificed. Now, if we were to tell people on this podcast right now what we're saying, you need to sacrifice that comfort, put away some money in order to get to the riches, I literally still think people won't do it because people want to be comfortable. They don't want to sacrifice. And I think no matter what point in your life, you will sacrifice in one way or another. If you're going to choose to sacrifice now, or you're going to choose to sacrifice later when you're 70, 75, and you're about to retire, and have to ask your kids for help because you did not plan accordingly. That is not the sacrifice I want to make. I don't want to put that on my kids' back. So we are choosing to sacrifice now instead of later, so that we are not stressing anybody else out, but we have a plan and we're set financially. So choose a sacrifice. It's going to be now or later.
So I like you brought up Grant Cardone, and there was something that he said a few years ago that I heard, and it really stuck with me. He was talking about going broke, and he said that he didn't buy his first fancy car until he was 50 years old, and he was worth tons of money at that point, right? And I'm like, oh man, like I really relate to that. I kind of embraced it because it was like where I'm at. I got this junky truck that I'm driving around, right? Like we're making good money. We have these businesses and people are looking at me like, Brett, like you need a better truck. And I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it, right? Like I didn't tell people this, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep driving these cars until I get the jet, right? Like I don't care. I'm going to skip over comfort completely, right? I'm going to look like I got nothing until bam, I'm going to buy my own jet. Like that is my priority. That is my mindset. Riches first, lots of sacrifice, right? We've been sacrificed for 10 plus years. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 years, I can get a jet.
I believe you could do it.
It's going to happen. So just a few more years of sacrifice for me, right? And then, at some point you get to a certain stage and it's like, you're sacrificing less on the physical things and you're sacrificing more on the time or the priorities. Right? You look at Elon Musk, richest man in the world. I heard an interview with him and he said, you don't want my life, right? Like his life is hard, right? I've heard stories of him when they were getting Tesla going, how he was sleeping on the floor of his office for months straight, right? Like he sacrifices comfort so much, right? Like he probably sacrifices security also, right? He's literally putting his wealth and his fortune on the line every time he starts a new business. Right? Like this is what rich people do. They do it because they have this goal. They prioritize riches or wealth at the top and they say, I am willing to get uncomfortable, right? And let's talk about uncomfortable less in the fact of living the middle-class lifestyle with the house, with the picket fence and the pool in the backyard. How about getting uncomfortable with like, I'm going to go and market myself to potential people I need to raise money from. I'm going to start a new business. I'm going to post on social media about what I'm doing, right? Like there are so many things that if you wanted to grow your business, if you wanted to become an entrepreneur, if you wanted to level up, you got to get out of your comfort zone. And that is so much of it here. I think honestly, if you get to riches, it's probably pretty equal with sacrificing physical things and actually just sacrificing your comfort, being uncomfortable, getting out of what your normal day-to-day stuff is and being like, well, I just got to get uncomfortable today and I got to do this in order to grow.
There's been so many times we've done like coaching calls or like podcasts, for example, where I'm like, I just don't think I'm fit for this. Like, I don't think do people really want to listen to what I'm saying? Like, I mean, yes, we've built this great life and we have businesses and whatever else, but like, there's still that uncomfortableness that I still get even now, doing certain things or talking about certain things. And I think that it's a good thing to just embrace that and know that being uncomfortable is where the growth is. And so we've embraced that now. But I think in the beginning, it was like, ooh, uncomfortable. It's not a good thing. We don't want that. We want the warm, fuzzy blanket in the bed, right? Like we want to be warm and comfortable. And so we have kind of like shifted our mindset to embrace that uncomfortableness, knowing that that's the way to propel us to the next level.
So let me kind of wrap this conversation and ask a question. If you were going to give advice on how to prioritize these three things, security, comfort, and riches, what would you say to somebody?
So we touched on it briefly, but I think it's the mental mindset that I think really withholds people from getting to the next level. And so expanding your mindset on finances and personal development, personal growth, I think that's something that I would focus on, because if you don't believe that you can be rich or be wealthy, then you won't get there. And so I think the only way to get there is to read books, listen to podcasts, hang out with people who have more money than you, ask them questions on how they got there. Grow and develop you and your mindset, I think is kind of the first step in any of this. Because again, if you think that you're only worth $45,000 a year, then you're not going to ever get there, because your mind will tell you, oh no, you're not worth that. You can't get that. And so I would say expand your mental mindset. That would be the first step.
Yeah. Okay. I would give someone this piece of advice. Regardless of what your priorities are, And no one says, hey, I want to be poor. But if you said, I wanted to have a comfortable middle-class life, or I want to be rich, or somewhere in between, either one, I would say you need a plan. Identify your plan. What is the income level you're going to need to get to your goals? What are the expenses you need to have? How are you going to save a certain percentage and then invest that in some type of way? So come up with some plan, because usually a simple plan is the best plan. And then it's just a long-term of action, right? 10, 20, 30 years of taking simple, consistent action. And you'll get to whatever it is, whether it's comfort or riches.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Donkey and the Bee. And hey, before you go, we have one ask. If there was anything in this episode that really hit home with you and you want to share it, please do so. Sharing this will impact so many more people's lives, and we really want to do that. So please click subscribe below and share it with a friend or family member.